Now, I just want to remind you about what is so incredibly important about these quizzes. What is so important is two things. The first thing is you get to see what you don't understand. That's why I don't care what you get on the first quiz. It's irrelevant to me. You can look at it and say, oh, I didn't understand that. So you can go home tonight and you can work on it, and then we're going to give you 2 more chances to get it right. But it allows me to know what I thought wrong. When I looked at this quiz, I figured we should do okay on number 1 because I kind of rushed it at the end of class yesterday, but it's really easy to remember. I didn't expect you to do that well on number 2, but okay. Number 3, I thought you'd get crushed on. And number 4, I thought was really easy. But people got hammered on number 4. So here I am thinking, everybody's going to get number 4 right. In fact, I put number 4 on the quiz so everybody would get at least 1 question right. And yet, I would say no more than a quarter of you got number 4 right. So obviously there's something wrong with what I misunderstood. So just like the quiz shows you guys what you don't get and what you don't understand, it also teaches me where I'm making a mistake and what I need to do a little bit better with. So let's begin by doing this entire section. Scooch back a little bit. And now let's talk and review very quickly. Hey, folks, let's review very quickly, if you don't mind, one of the words that we talked about yesterday from our swirl. Remember, speak, read, write, listen. One of the words was represent. What does represent mean, Alan? Right, to show it as. So this question here says, which one does not represent a function? So it's saying, which one of these is not a function? Now, someone who got the answer right, tell us. Chels. Well, you're giving me the answer to number 2. Which one's not the function? B. B is not a function. Now, Chels, can you give me the reason why B is not a function?
Because the line is got more than once.
It touches more than once. And what kind of line? Somebody talk to me. What is this? Vertical. Listen, here's how we remember horizontal. You're walking with your girlfriend on the beach.
Oh my God.
It's a tender, romantic moment. You're going down the beach. The sun is setting on the horizon. This is horizontal, horizon, okay? With your puppy dog on the beach. Now, this, when's the last time the sun went like this? All right? This is not the horizon. This, if it's not horizontal, what is it? Vertical. So this is vertical. Now, the reason that this choice is not a function, the easiest way to say it, ready? It fails the vertical line test. Now, you could also say what Chelsea said. She said the graph touches twice. Now, this is what we mean by that. What we mean is, if I was to graph a vertical line on top of this graph, or draw a vertical line on top of this graph, do I ever touch the red in any place more than once? No. What about this one, though? Can you see that I touched the red twice with the same line? So that means that it fails the vertical line test, James. I touch twice, or more. I could touch 22 times. If it's a function, you're only allowed to touch once. Now, here's one of the rules about a function, and we're going to get a lot more into this in 2 days. But I kind of jump-started us on these quizzes so that we can answer the basic question. And we'll get a little into we'll dig deeper into the how in a couple of days. The bottom line is, to be a function, there are really 2 primary rules. One of those rules is every input can only have 1 output. Every input has how many outputs? 1. If you look here, when I touch once, that means there's 1 output. When I touch twice, what does it mean? There's 2 outputs. That violates what it means to be a function, so that can't be a function. If I draw vertical lines here, at any vertical line, or for any vertical line, how many times do I touch the red graph? Do I ever touch more than once? Do I ever touch more than once, guys?
Nope.
No, absolutely not. Every green line touches the red only once. What if I do this? How many times do I touch? Once. So therefore, the only one that's not a function is choice B. Remember, in a function, every input has only how many outputs? One output. Very good. Okay, now, we didn't even begin to talk about that with number 3. But if we discuss number 3, and we go into it right now, X is what? Input or output? Guys, X, what is it? Input. What is Y?
Out.
Output. So I look here, look at the inputs, -2, 1, 3, 5. Every input has how many outputs? 1. This is, oh, sorry about that. This is a function. What about here? Every input, -1, -5, 2, 4, 3, 7, 4, 10. Every input has how many outputs? 1. This is a function. Jimmy, head in the game. Now look over here. -2, 3, 1, 3, 3, 3, 5, 3. Does every input have only one output? Yes. They're all the same. I don't care. This, a -2, only goes to a 3. A 1 only goes to a 3. So this is. But look at this last one here. Here's 3. What's the output? 4. Here's 3. What's the output? -4. This is not a function. If I was to graph it very quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4 and -4 would be on the same graph. How many times would I touch? I touch more than once, right? And that means it's not a function. It fails the vertical line test. We will talk more about that later. The bottom line is, when you're looking at a table, Sam, you with me here? When you're looking at a table and you want to know which one is not a function, look for a table where the x guys repeat. If any x number repeats itself, it's not a function. Okay? Any questions? All right. Now for the one that I thought everybody would really get right easy, and I said, well, we'll give them an easy one at the end of the quiz. Everybody's going to get this right. This is the simplest question on the face of the earth. I can't wait just to make sure everybody gets one right. You know, make them feel good. Everything's going to be okay. And you guys got rocked on this. If you read this, f of x equals -2x plus 5, you have not done a bad thing. If you understand it as f of x equals -2x plus 5, you have an incomplete understanding. What you should say to yourself when you read this is the following. Sticky takes the input. Remember, who's Sticky?
Your friend.
Plastic.
Yeah.
I use real
Paper.
components. Metal. He's the guy in the calculator. He's the perfect sticky to stick man. He takes the input. What does x stand for again, guys? Input. Multiplies it by -2, adds 5. So this says, what if the input is -5? In other words, f of x, it says f of -5. This means the -5 becomes x. Now, what's -2 times -5? Here's where we have the problem. Positive 10. When you multiply by a negative, you switch the sign. So I'm multiplying by 5, which makes the 10 negative, but then I multiply by a negative also, which switches the sign. So I have 10, and 10 plus 5 is 15. And that's the answer to the last one. Okay? So, what do you need to do? You need to go home tonight and look this quiz over before you start your homework. In all honesty, now that we've gone over the quiz, was it really that hard?
No.
No. So all you need to do is work on it. If you got a 0 today, let's get at least a 50 tomorrow. If you got a 25 today, let's get at least a 75 tomorrow. If you got a 50 today, let's go for the 100 tomorrow. All right. So today's lesson sheet. Let's start with to do it. I was wondering why there's so much noise.
Down. No,
Can I
Jimmy's
ask
out.
why it's every day this period? Rita?
What?
Why is it every day this
You
period?
can't go yet.
What?
You ask a lot during class. Frequently, yeah, a lot of days.
Oh.
So if it's like an emergency and the bladder's gonna burst, by all means. But if it's like, yeah, I'm starting to feel like I might gotta do a little wee-wee,
Oh my god.
then you hold on a little bit, all right? Now, number one and number two, we did a very similar thing yesterday to all of these questions, so let's go through them quickly, okay? The volume of 1 cube is 8 times 10 to the 7th. The volume of the second is 2 times 10 to the 6th. How many times bigger is the first than the second? And we realized yesterday that we need to divide. Now, what do I do to the coefficients, the 8 and the 2? What do I do here? Divide, that's 4. What do I do to the exponents? Subtract, so that's 4 times 10 to the 1. Which of those choices equals 4 times 10 to the 1? Choice B, 40, very good. All right, next said which could be the graph of, and I did a boo-boo. I didn't draw you the pictures, but you can do it very quickly. My y-intercept is 2, my slope is a third. Graph's gonna look like this, okay? Are we good on that? What would the graph of y equals 2 look like? Draw with your hands. Very good. Horizontal line. Remember, what's the slope of y equals 2, everybody? 0. What kind of slope is this?
Positive.
Positive. What kind of slope is this?
Negative.
Negative. What's right in between the negative and a positive number?
0.
0. So if this has a slope of 0, it has to be a perfectly horizontal line. So a sketch of y equals 2 would have that, and it would go like through here. There's y equals 2. Okay? All right, now a little bit more practice with functions based on the work we did yesterday, following up on something I thought you would understand really well, and apparently I did not do a particularly good job teaching. In the function y equals negative 4x plus 1, what is the output if the input is 9? Now, what letter stands for input?
X.
X. So I'm going to take the 9, whoa, I'm going to take the 9, and I'm going to plug it in for x. What's negative 4 times 9? Negative 36. And what's negative 36? Now, when it says plus 1, I can either think of it as plus 1 or go up 1. What's negative 36? Go up 1. Negative 35. Good. Next one says, what's the output if the input is negative 5? Now, x stands for input, so I take the negative 5 this time and put it in for x. What's negative 4 times negative 5? Positive 20. Go up 1. 21. Some of you guys are getting tripped up on a negative times a negative. Remember the rule. If I do a negative number times a negative number, look, negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. But when I multiply by a negative, that means I need to negate the first sign. It's positive 20. Okay? All right. So, as we went around and checked the homework, we went over the one question I thought was, well, there were more than one question that was important, but we went over that one. You have answers to last night's homework on the sheet from today. Now what we're going to do is work on today's lesson, and it's going to be very similar to yesterday's lesson. So we're just going to work it through, okay? Here's my buddy Sticky the Stick Man. Little swirl action here. What does a function do? What is a function? It changes things. Do me a favor, turn to the person next to you. Tell them about something in the real world that's a function. I'll give you 20 seconds to do that. 30 seconds. Global warming is not a function.
What is changing the world?
That it can be resolved.
Change things? What's changed? Change things.
Okay, who's got an example of a function? Who can tell me in the real world something that's a function? Come on, somebody, a function. Somebody that's a function. Guess. A car. What does a car do? What's the input into a car? What do you give it that makes it run? Gas. And what's the output? Yeah, energy. You go place. It uses that energy to take you someplace. That's a good example of a function. Here's another example of a function. Ready? Cooking your food. You might put in a raw piece of chicken. What does the oven do to it?
Bake.
It bakes it. It changes it to a cooked piece of chicken. So the input is the raw chicken. The output is the cooked chicken. And the function is the heating of it. Okay. Now, the input, what does domain mean again, guys?
Input.
Set of all the inputs. So, if in my oven I put a piece of chicken and some potatoes, then my input is chicken and potatoes. If my output then becomes the cooked chicken, and let's say the potatoes become mashed potatoes. I know you don't do those in an oven, but just say that you do. Then you get chicken and mashed potatoes as your output. The range is the output. The chicken and mashed potatoes would be the range. The input would be the raw chicken and the fresh potatoes. Okay? All right. So now, let's take a look at another function. This time the domain goes from -2 to +2. And I like to draw the picture first. So, let's do some picture drawing here. What's this set on the left known as? X. It's all the X's and it's the domain. Good. What's the set on the right known as? The range. And what letter indicates range? Y. Excellent. Now, the domain we just said was -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, it said it right on the page. Okay, so let's put all of those in, and then let's think about how Sticky reacts with this. We really need to focus on our function rules because we struggled on number 4 on the quiz, and this is supposed to be routine. It's supposed to be the easy part of what's going on. Can somebody tell me what this says? Please don't say y equals 1/2 x plus 1. Use the terms input and output when you tell me what it says. Work with me here, guys. What letter means output? What letter means output? What letter means output? Y. What letter means input? So this says output is what? Half of the input minus 1. So here's my inputs. That's what domain is. Let's do the positives first. I think they're easier. My input is 2. What's half of 2? 1. And what's 1 minus 1? 0. So what we're doing here is half of 2 minus 1. What did we say half of 2 was? 1. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. So my input is 2. My output is 0. And that would be the function. The function is transforming or changing 2 into 0. Let's do 0 because it's my favorite and I think it's the best one in the whole world. What's half of 0? 0. And then what's 0 minus 1? -1. So 0 becomes -1. And now let's do -2 because, again, it's a whole number that works out pretty good. What's half of -2? -1. Now go down another 1. -2. Okay, now we have to do these two. And I left them for last because they're fractions. What's half of 1? Or a half, right? Half of 1 is a half. And what is 1/2 minus 1? Does anybody know that? See if you're comfortable with fractions. If you're at a half and you go down 1, -1/2 it is. Very good. Now let's put in a -1. What's half of -1? If half of +1 is +1/2, what's half of -1? -1/2. So what do you think, if you're at -1/2, like I like to think of it as being on a thermometer. If you're at -1/2 on the thermometer and you go down 1, where are you at? -1/2. Very good. -1/2. Or -1.5, same thing. All right, so there is my work as a picture. Now let's write it as a table. Okay? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to help you out with the first part of this. And I think that you should be able to do really well. This is x, y. What's the first thing I'm going to put in my table? -2, and then what's the y? -2. See, the -2 becomes what? -2. What goes next in my table? -1, and then what goes over here? -1.5 or -1.5. You fill in the rest of the table.
I started at the top because I forgot to put the y next to it. That's fine.
You put the x and y at the bottom?
Yeah, because I.
Next time, put it outside the table. It should go at the top. Okay, what's the next pair, guys? 0 and -1. What's next? 1 and -1/2. And then what's last? 2, and 0. By the way, does anybody see a pattern?
Yeah.
What's the pattern?
2, 1. No.
That is a pattern. 2, 1, 0, or this way, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. That's a pattern. Do you see another pattern? I do.
Yeah.
With the negative, with the multiplication of 1 and
Well, watch. -2, -1.5, -1, -0.5, 0. What is this going up by every single time? Half. So there's a pattern going on. Hey, wait a minute. What was this equation? Why do you think it's going up by a half?
That's what it says.
What's the slope? A half. And didn't we say another name for slope was rate of change? So that change is a half, and that's why the half is the basis of the pattern. Okay, now let's graph the points. We can write it as a set of ordered pairs. If I write it as a set of ordered pairs, I'm going to get -2, -2, -1, -1.5, 0, -1, 1, -0.5, and 2, 0. Those were my sets of ordered pairs, right? The set, guys, all the set of ordered pairs is, come on, get with the program here. It's just these pairs right here from the table, okay? Oh, listen, no, this goes away. We're here to do math, not draw beautiful outfits. Now, let's plot them. On your paper, where's -2, -2? Plot the point, -2, -2. Here it is, good. What's next? What's the next point that I want to plot? -1, -1.5, which would be in the middle here. What would be the next one? 0, -1, that's right here. What would be next? Guys, what would be the next point? 1, -0.5, and what would be the next point? 2, 0. Now, if I connect the dot, what did I just create? What did I draw?
Line.
A line. Oh, wait a minute. This equation was y equals 1/2 x minus 1. What's the slope of that function or that line? What is it again? 1/2. Nice. What's the y-intercept? -1. Hey, where did I begin? Up 1/2. Up 1/2. Backside. So in other words, what we did in the graphing unit also can equate with what we're doing now in the function unit. It's two ways of looking at the same thing. Okay, now your turn to work on the next section. You and the people work together, talk to each other. I'm going to float around, and let's see how you do. Go ahead, get working on it.
Excuse me, can you get Alan a pencil?
No, I can't. I have no pencils to give out. If I did, I'd be happy to give them. Oh, by the way, look, this time the domain is -1 to 3. Okay, I changed the domain a little bit. So the x's are -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Guys, there's not a lot of noise here. You should be talking to the people around you, working together
I don't know.
on getting this figured out.
-1.
Yes. See, -2 times -1, that's perfect. 7 is good. This is gonna be, oh, this is blank? Oh, I thought that was a 7. All right, what's -2 times 0? And what's 0 plus 7? Keep going. And now you can look for patterns to help you out. Like if you have a pattern on the right side that goes 9, 7, 5, 14, you know something's wrong, right? Because that doesn't follow. It should be 9, 7, 5, and what should come next? 3, that's right. So use the pattern coupled with the answers to like confirm that they're going to be okay. Clark, in the game, let's go. When you do the picture, right? Domain, allow, back and forth. All right, Jay, you gotta go right there. Talk to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, see what you got going on there. -1 does become 9, that's right. What if you give it a -2? What is -2 times -2? Good, and then plus 7. the domain it says here is from -1 to 3. So in here goes -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then your job is to figure out the output. Okay, guys, I got a question. Somebody here, tell me something important I wanted you to learn today. What was I getting at through the lesson that's really important for you to remember at all times? Alan, what's one thing? Domain and range. Which letter means domain, everybody? X. Which letter means range? Y. What else is important to remember about functions? What are some of the things I wanted you to know when I began this lesson with you guys? Hey, come on, look this way. Tell me something else. That's one thing. I want 3 things. Something else important. Think about what you learned during the period. If you learned it, I wanted you to know it. What else do you know? Go ahead. How to graph ordered pairs, that we could line them up and we could sketch them. What else did we learn? Very, very, very important, guys. If you don't know what it was I was trying to teach you, then either you didn't learn well or I didn't teach well. Something went on here. What's something we reminded you of the past when you did the negative times the negative? What did that always work out to be? Positive, right? People were forgetting that. We had to go back and review that. Okay? Remember about input when it says f of x equals -2x plus 7 or whatever. Okay, do a great job studying this stuff tonight, preparing, and then tomorrow we have day 3. It's another sheet that looks just like this. Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios, toodaloo, ta-ta. Arrivederci, smile a lot, ciao, arrivederci, adios amigos y amigas, cheerio. Grandma didn't get to the hair yet, huh? Okay, lots of hustle, guys. Did you show your homework today?
No, I forgot.
Show it during lunch. If you do it during lunch, I'll show it to you.
The quiz, I put the numerical on.
Okay, here's the deal. Tomorrow, if you don't get a 75 or higher, remind me, because I think the highest grade gets 75 tomorrow. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Louis Bariswada to the main office, please.
nuts now.
Yes, we do.
I almost killed myself this morning, and they're giving me more cells. It's horrible. Gloves now.
You feel better now?
I hate ice. Ice is terrible. I slipped on it and it hurt my butt. There was like 5 kids
Ice
in the
can
morning
definitely
that
be
fell.
bothersome.
5 kids in the morning fell.
Okay. Ready? Quiz time.
Homework counts more in this class, right? More than anything.
No, most important thing, percentage-wise, is test. And then quizzes, then homework.
So if I did all my homework and failed like
Oh,
basically every test.
basically, if you do all your homework, you pretty much get 10 points added to your average.
Okay.
Actually, more like 12. Okay? All right, let's get rocking on that, guys. We got a lot to cover. This quiz is pretty tough. So some of the things we didn't do a thorough job of getting to yesterday, do the best you can. If there's one you don't know, it's the first quiz in a series. It is far from the end of the world. The do it needs to get done when you're done with the quizzes. And if you want, then you can, whenever you're done with that do it, you can come on up and check the homeworks.
What's the function?
It's just a picture. The only one that you need to know the function rule for is the last one. Where are we here?
I'm getting nervous because I have a show fire concert tonight.
All right, we got to shake that off, though, okay? Get focused on what we got to do here.
What's vertically this?
I can't tell you that. I meant to give you this yesterday. I didn't. One of the other things we do as far as the homework goes is to give you a whole bunch of the answers in there. You're welcome. 3, 6, 8, 11. We're all set.